Hey guys, Scott Poley here. I'm a session guitarist and pedal steel player. I also produce and write music. I'm delighted to be here for Sound Effects Music to talk all about the brand new PRS Silver Sky SE model. Finally, PRS have released a budget-friendly version of the infamous John Mayer signature model. So in this video, we're going to talk about the new SE Silver Sky, and we're going to compare it to a classic Silver Sky. Now, what's the main difference in these guitars, I hear you ask? Well, basically, this guitar is 3 times as much as this one. This guitar is Fender Modern Player Series kind of money, whereas this is Fender Custom Shop Strat kind of money, roughly. Now, in a moment, I'm going to run through all 5 positions on the selector switch and compare between the SE and the USA model Silver Sky. But before I do, please bear in mind that these guitars are very, very similar sounding in the first place. I mean, you'd be hard pushed to tell the difference even in the room. Yes, there are some slight differences. The USA model is a slightly fuller, richer, crisper sound, but by the time it's recorded, and especially by the time that you're hearing this, YouTube compression, audio quality is less, and please do try and listen to this on headphones. You're really not going to notice that much of a difference. But let's check out some of the differences, starting with the neck pickup, and I'm going to keep the same settings on each guitar. We need to have a look at the features of the guitars and compare them. If you're new to this channel, thanks so much, obviously, for watching and joining us. I would love it if you consider subscribing. There's loads of great content on this channel, but let's get on with it. Firstly, let's talk about the finishes. Of course, the full wax Silver Sky has this beautiful metallic finish. They call it Midnight Rose. It's a stunning metallic finish that, if you were a Fender fan, you may call Burgundy Mist Metallic. But it's stunning. However, on the SE finish, you will see that obviously it's not metallic. Metallic finishes are more expensive to make. They're more prone to malfunctions and stuff like that. So this is a solid colour finish that they will call Dragon Fruit. Or pink, if you're not from the marketing department. It's a lovely finish, really high quality gloss finish. PRS are always flawless in their finishes. This is much more reminiscent of the PRS that John Mayer has been using recently on Last Train Home and stuff like that. Very briefly, let's touch on this. On the full whack PRS, it's a slightly more in-fitting off-white plastic than the very bright white one on the SE. Who the hell cares? I'm sure someone does out there, but such is life. One cool feature, however, talking about the plastics, the full wax Silver Sky has this, no backplate thing. You can see the tremolo springs, there's no holes in it, and it's not supplied with a cover for this. Why might that be? If you were wanting to adjust the tremolo, then you can do it easily without the backplate, and arguably it looks pretty cool to not have one. However, on the SE model, you will see we do have a cover for the springs. If you did want to remove that, it's 4 screws. You can take it off, whatever. I should mention as well, while we're here, both of the guitars have this really comfy neck body joint, and the heel here is sculpted out at the corners. So whereas most Fenders are flat here, this is much more comfy. So if you want to get off the dusty end of the fretboard, then there's nothing much digging into your hand here. So that's a really nice feature that I'm a big fan of. Like the American model, the SE Silver Sky has a 2-piece maple neck with a 22 fret rosewood fingerboard. The finishes on the neck, you can actually hear this. It's, of course, this is a brand new guitar, but it's a matte finish. It's going to be really comfy. If you're playing in a sweaty bar or, some sort of sweaty venue, then a more matte finish is preferable to a gloss finish that's going to make you slide all over the fretboard. So this is great, super comfy. However, the more expensive PRS, you'll notice no major noise from there. It's a slightly gloss finish, but again, it doesn't have that horrible peanut buttery, glossy, naff feeling that you get from some guitars. The inlays are largely the same. They're PRS's Birds inlays that they've had for years, but a slightly shrunken down version. I have a PRS Custom 22 that I've had for years. It's just behind me, and I was just looking at it earlier. It's got much wider Bird inlays than on this. They nearly touch the end of the fretboard. But these are slightly shrunken down. They look absolutely fantastic. The materials are slightly different. They're slightly more snazzy on the much more expensive PRS, but, this is nearly 3 times cheaper than that one, so such is life. I also want to mention this jack plate, because I think it's really cool. Compared to a Fender one, which is flat, this is like a domed jack plate. Again, not a big deal. Who the heck cares? But it's a nice touch. In terms of the electronics, we all love talking about pickups, and we all love swapping pickups and stuff like that. The full whack, expensive PRS here has these PRS 635JM pickups, and that is embossed on the pickup cover, which is quite a nice touch. I know PRS like doing that. On the SE model, now I've only read the crib sheet which has been sent to me, so don't quite quote me on this one, but these are slightly cheaper pickups. They're not embossed, so they don't say anything on them. They're more standard looking strap pickups, and they also say S on the end, so it's a 635JM S pickup. But they sound awesome. Now, John Mayer's pickups, if you go back through his Fender days, he had these big dipper pickups with a mid scoop to give the really glossy tone that you hear on John Mayer's records. And these guitars are no different than that at all. They have a beautiful tone. Both of them sound incredible. As you can hear, if you go to the other video on the sound effects channel, I'll link it in the top right hand corner now. The guitar sounds stunning. Beautiful Strat style, glossy John Mayer tones, and they're super versatile. If you want to add gain to them, effects, whatever, they sound amazing. When you talk about the electronics, volume, tone, classic Fender stuff, 5 positions on the selector, typical standard thing. One thing to mention though, as stock, Fender have been doing this for years, where there's no tone control for the bridge pickup. And the reason you might want one of those is this is a really bright pickup to the point where the treble can shave your eyebrows off if you're not careful. Whereas this guitar ships with a tone control for the bridge pickup as standard. Fantastic work. Bravo, PRS and John Mayer. Points scored there from me. So with this guitar, you've got volume at the top. This is your neck pickup tone, and your bridge pickup tone is this bottom one. And that's the same on both guitars, which is a really nice choice. 5-position selector works as normal, so you have neck pickup, neck and middle, and bridge. Now, of course, with this being an SE model, there are going to be some compromises with the quality of the electronics. However, the sound doesn't tell you that. These are beautiful feeling pots, really high quality, no noise. The pickups all sound amazing. Really, this is a beautiful instrument. In terms of build quality on these guitars, they're both built flawlessly. And again, bravo PRS. You've done a great job on these. In terms of the materials used, this has a poplar body on the SE model. This has an alder body on the more expensive model. Now, obviously, alder is a more expensive wood, hence why that is the case. And of course, just generally higher quality timber is used. It's a beautiful grain on the neck on this guitar, whereas this is a more kind of standard piece of wood. Both have maple necks with rosewood fretboards. Yes, that includes the SE model. Bravo PRS. And I'm glad to see there is some movement on that. There's been a real scarcity with rosewood recently. They've obviously found a way of doing it with this guitar. So that's a really great thing. With the more expensive PRS, you can get maple fretboards. Now, I've not seen that on the SEs yet. I'm sure that will come in time for those of you who like maple fingerboards. Now, one thing I didn't talk about earlier when I was talking about the build of these guitars and the different woods involved is the weight. Now, this guitar, the more expensive PRS, weighs absolutely nothing. It is absolutely stunning, and it would be my preference if I had to do a long night of playing. This weighs absolutely nothing at all. Bravo PRS. The SE model is not a heavy guitar. Don't mistake me here, folks. But it's just a little bit more weighty than the more expensive guitar. The poplar wood is a little bit more dense, and that's the way it is. And of course, that's going to have some effect on tone and sustain and all that stuff, but this is still a great guitar. It's not heavy. It's certainly not like a 70s Strat or a 70s Les Paul, which weighs far too much for most people's shoulders. One thing, however, talking about playing these guitars that most people have been going on about online is, oh, they've changed the fingerboard radius. What's a fingerboard radius anyway, I hear you ask? Dead easy. A fingerboard radius, for those of you who don't know, is fingerboards are not plain flat. This is not a flat piece of wood. It's, in fact, radius, so it's like a curve. And it's different on these guitars. This guitar has a 7.25 inch radius. So that means across here, it's at an angle, like a big circle that's 7.25 inches. This guitar has an 8.5 inch radius, so it's slightly flatter. Generally, acoustic guitars have a flatter radius on the fretboard. It allows you to play chords and stuff easier. And different guitars have different radiuses. But I think I know why the SE model has a flatter radius. Of course, on a really expensive guitar like this, it should be set up well. And you want every option to have the exact feel that John Mayer wants. So he wants this classic Fender feel, absolutely great, and 7.25 is going to give you that feel. It's really comfy to play. However, 7.25 inch radiuses, if you don't set them up right, you can grind out, or whatever you want to call it, choke out notes around the 12th fret. When you're bending, particularly Fenders are well known to what you call choke out, so meaning the notes will stop and choke out around the 12th fret, so they'll kind of go that kind of sound. Of course, this is a nearly £3,000 PRS, so it definitely doesn't do that. However, that's quite hard to achieve, and there's lots of different luthiers found different ways of trying to do that over the years. An 8.5 inch radius, however, is going to give you, as a builder or someone setting these up, a little bit more flexibility and less chance of notes choking out. Now, these are more mass-produced guitars. They're a third of the price of the more expensive ones, so you're going to expect some differences. It does feel, of course, slightly different to play. Actually, when you're playing things like bar chords, like big bar chords, I would argue that this feels more comfy to me because it's more flat than the more vintage Fender style feel of the other Silver Sky. But you're going to have to play both of these guitars to feel the difference. It's all well and good me telling you. But I think that's why they've done this. But this is a super comfy. It's quite a slim neck on this. It's a really comfy, it's a John Mayer profile, they call it. There's probably a 635 profile, I don't know. But it's super comfy. It's fairly slim and quite wide, but great for playing all those big chords. And you can get, John Mayer does this thing where he, like Jimi Hendrix, plays chords like this with his thumb over the top. And this guitar will absolutely help you to do that if you want to play in that style. We should talk about some of the hardware on these guitars because, again, similarities and differences. I would love to tell you all about the tremolo systems, but this is a brand new guitar and the tremolo system is still locked away in its new container for whoever buys it. So, sorry folks, I can't tell you about that. However, both guitars have a similar no, they don't have a similar 2-point tremolo system. I'm talking nonsense, I do apologise. This has a 6-screw tremolo system, whereas the SE has a 2-point tremolo system. How interesting. And this is beautifully set up. So, on classic, getting a bit in-depth here, folks, but bear with me. On classic Fender tremolos, when they're set up, really only the 2 outer screws do an awful lot. And you can loosen off the 4 middle screws to give you the maximum stability. That's the way luthiers have found a good way of keeping these kind of bridges more in tune. Now, obviously, John Mayer wanted the aesthetic and the feel of an old kind of Fender style design, so 6 screws it is for this one. However, on the more budget version, we've got a 2-point tremolo. See, there's only 2 screws here. But that's great. And both guitars have a tremolo system that doesn't screw in like a Fender, it pushes in. And it has these nice bushings, so you don't have the issues with Fenders where they kind of jump about and you have to put a little bit of tape around the tremolo arms to make them. You can eliminate all that because it just pushes in, and that's a really nice touch. The nut going up towards the top here, the nut is quite different on these guitars. This is a synthetic bone nut on the SE. I'm not a big fan of synthetic bone. It's on loads of guitars, and of course this is a more budget model. It's also fitted a lot differently than this guitar. You will see in comparison. This is a much wider nut that just pushes in at the end of the fretboard. However, this one, you can see there's rosewood showing and it goes in and then there's the rosewood there. So this is a much cheaper way of fitting a nut, and it's synthetic bone. This is a real bone nut and it's cut beautifully with a nice bit of fall away. I don't know, it's a cost saving thing, obviously. I will say, however, there's no tuning stability issues that I can find with this nut. So that's the way it is. And if you really wanted a proper bone nut, of course, you could have a luthier fit one for you. Tuners. Before we get to the tuners, actually, I should mention a small aesthetic difference. You will see this has this kind of different, more generic truss rod cover than the beautiful recessed one that's on the more expensive Silver Sky. If that's the difference that makes you buy a guitar that's 3 times the price, then good on you, folks. But it's just a truss rod cover. We should talk about the tuners, however, because that's quite important. If you're getting value out of this video, by the way, I would love it if you consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. But anyway, tuners on the SE, they're non-locking tuners. They're just standard, you know, wind them in the same way that you normally would. They've got these beautiful matte finish buttons that are lovely, and they're the same on this guitar. However, this guitar has locking tuners. So increased tuning stability, all that stuff on the more expensive guitar. Doesn't really matter. I've been playing this guitar and bending for a couple of hours now, and it's not affecting me at all. It plays in tune beautifully. So bravo PRS for that. What else can I tell you about this? It has 22 frets. Both frets on both guitars are very similar. There are quite a tall fret wire actually on this. It feels lovely. They're tall, but they're not wide. They're slightly taller on the expensive PRS, but they're not wide at all. And that's great for tuning stability. And also, if you're going to have these guitars maintained, you want to use them regularly, then you've got more room for fret dresses and all that kind of thing. So, good quality fret wire. We have 22 frets. Why would you want 22 frets? You can bend up to a high E, which is really nice. I have to say, again, this is for me where the more expensive PRS shines, because it's got a beautiful neck finish that makes you want to play it and play it and play it. This to me feels, certainly as a brand new guitar, I don't know, a little bit more cheap. But if you buy this guitar, I would like to bet you that as you play this, it's going to just feel better and better and better. And the best guitars are like an old pair of jeans once you play them in and use them and stuff like that. So, the final point on these guitars, what do they come with? Of course, they both come with a tremolo arm, which I can't show you because it's in there. They've both got the same truss rod, which is a dual action truss rod. Great, you know, good quality guitars, both fitted well. And you've got a truss rod adjustment tool that comes with it. Both guitars come with gig bags. A more deluxe version, of course, on the Silver Sky. There are a few other minor things, like the strap buttons are different. They're more generic on the SE model than that one. But in the main, if you want, you know, a Strat style guitar, if you're a fan of John Mayer, if you just want a really great guitar for not too much money, all day long, this is a beautiful instrument. It will last you a lifetime. No questions about it. It's built like a tank. What can I say? It's a great instrument. I'd love to play this in sessions and play it live. It's fantastic. Why would you plump for a more expensive instrument that's 3 times the price? I mean, look at it. What a stunning piece of kit this is. The finish is stunning. The appointments are fantastic. The quality control on this PRS is second to none. It's lightweight, and these are the models that John Mayer uses exclusively now. I mean, let's face it, John Mayer is one of the best guitar players in the world at the moment. So, bravo PRS, 2 killer instruments. Thanks so much for watching. If you've got value out of this video, I would love it if you consider subscribing to the Sound Effects YouTube channel. And I'll catch you next time.